not really about me. My mom is a gerontologist, and I've written for years about low-wage workers. And my mom is one of these sisters who isn't proud of her children no matter what we've done. She always wants just a little bit more. When I was a kid and got A-minuses, she would say, "Where's the A?" If it was 94, she'd say, "But the 6 points missing." And so when she has an agenda, she will sometimes play a game. So I've written a piece about why home health workers needed more money. And Julianne Malveaux said to me, she actually did a couple things. First, she introduced me to some man who wore white socks. I'm single, happily and proudly so. It's difficult to be over 50 and fine and single. But I worked it out. But my mom still hasn't given up on looking for somebody. So she found this white socks wearing brother. And who dates somebody who wears white socks? So I said, "Mom, you have a problem." I said, "You have such a problem, I'm going to put you in an old folks home." Now, my mom is 86, and she's worse than me. A few people here know me. I'm a pistol. My mom is worse than me. So she said, "You can't put me in an old folks home, neck rolling." And I said, I said, "Keep it up. Send me one more white socks wearing brother, and we will have a place for you." And so then she tried to pander with me, and she said, "Well, Julianne, if you put me in an old folks home, help me out." I said, "How's that?" She said, "Don't put me in one where the people make the minimum wage." And I said, "Why would that be?" She said, "Well, if you made the minimum wage, what would you be?" I said, "Mad." She said, "Well, do you want mad people moving me from the bed to the bed?" And her line was, people need to be paid properly, and she still talks about people being paid properly. People who are not paid properly are not happy people. I don't think that anybody would deliberately drop anybody on the way from the bedpan to the bed. But I do think that somebody might have a little bit of an attitude. What we know right now is that in the district, minimum wage is $13.25, which basically adds up to about 530 cents a week. No, $530, forgive me, a week. If you made $15, it will be $600 a week. So here's the question. What would you do with the extra $70 a week? I'll tell you what you might do. You might buy some shoes for your child. You might buy a few more groceries. You might do something different with your transportation. You might move out your mama's house. And a lot of grown people live in a mama's house. And let me tell you, Julianne didn't have that. She put you up out of your house, her house, and you could sleep in the yard if you stayed in her house too long. But some folks don't have options. So you might, with the extra $70 a week, $280 a month, you might move somewhere else. We've just learned that the number of apartments here in D.C. that go for $800 have dropped. And so we know that people are having a very difficult time. You might look at tutoring for your child after school. And so many of our young people do not have the support they need. You might get your hoopty or your pizza card fixed. I've got a brother, and he always has a pizza card. He never had a whole card. He buys a card, he has pieces. And he takes the pieces and hooks them up. And I won't ride with him. I love him, but I won't ride with him. I go to San Francisco, he's like, "You want me to pick you up?" I'm like, "No. I'll meet you somewhere." But a lot of folks don't have an option but to have a pizza card. So you might fix your pizza card. I think the thing that we want to talk about this evening is what would this increase, this very fair increase, mean to the quality of your life? How could you change your life if you were fairly paid. And what does it take to be fairly paid? You're taking care of our elders. We say that our elders are sacred. So then why don't the people who take care of our elders be treated as if our elders are sacred? We pay parking lot attendants more than we pay the people who take care of our elders. Frankly, that does not make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. So one of the things that we're doing this evening as we bring you together is motivating you or asking you to come together in an organized way. Motivating you and ask you to barrage the council with your demands, not requests, but demands. Because Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a struggle. It never did and it never will. Those who want freedom without agitation are those who want the ocean without its mighty roar. I want y'all to roar, 1199. I want y'all to raise your voices and to scream out for social and economic justice. If you were taking care of my mama, I don't want you to drop her on the way from the bedhead to bed, although she might aggravate you enough to do that. I threaten her just about once a week. So I can probably, if you don't stop. But she is a gerontologist, and she often says, these people need to be paid more. And so you know what the agenda is, but I'm going to bring some women up who can talk about this more personally, quite frankly, and more substantively. We who are researchers look at this from a distance, but there are people who look at this every single day. I want to ask Paula Wilson to join us here. Paula, I believe you're here. I also want to ask y'all can read. So while I'm going to introduce them briefly, I'm not going to read this because y'all can read. You know, so Paula, lifelong resident of the district, living with her mom and her 12-year-old son. See what I said about your mom's house? Active member of her church, and she is someone who helps others even as she has struggled to help herself. So Paula, I want you to join us, and as she joins us, I want you to give her a round of applause. And then a sister from the Cameroons, where, you know, Oprah did this little something, 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 and she decided she was from the Cameroons. Well, because of those crazy DNA tests, everybody's from the Cameroons. I've been to Ghana 11 times, so I decided I was the native. But they didn't decide that. They called light-skinned black people Obroni, which means white folks. That's not nice. It's really not nice. I'm like, y'all, come on, let's get down with the program. But it's very, very interesting. I won't do the DNA test because I probably find my white folks, and I will find my black folks. I know I got some white folks up in there somewhere. I'm just not looking for them, unless they plan to give me some reparations. Now, if they want to share it well, I'm down with it. But if I'm just finding them, I don't think so. So Gladys, and I hope I pronounced your name right, Negbebli. Negbebli? Okay, I got it, huh? I think the most important thing we want to know about her, she came here in 2005, my sister, but she's a minister. She studied for the ministry. And so let's just call her Reverend Gladys, because she's praying for justice. And then, of course, we have a woman who has been studying this area for a very long time, and we're amazed at the work she's done. Caitlin Connolly is the Homecare Fair Pay Campaign Coordinator for the National Employment Law Project. She has been working for us. She has been working to make sure are indebted to her for the work that she has done. Now, I think they have that other mic over there for me, but you know, I like to stand up. So I'm going to ignore that mic for the moment. Am I okay? All righty, and if I'm not, I'll go sit down, I guess. Every now and then, Reverend Hagler, you know I will conform by appointment. And we don't have an appointment for that today. What I want to do...
Would like to join the panel. Michael Thomas.
Oh, Michael, I apologize. And Michael was not on my original list, and I guess that's because he is a special edition. Oh, yeah. We have him here. He's a volunteer with a number of organizations. He is a lifelong Washingtonian. He's been at the University of Maryland. I told y'all you can read. But here's something else that I like about Michael. We have tended to look at this area as a women's area. We have tended to look at the fact that more than 80% of those who do this work are women. And most of them are women of color, but guess what else? There are men who do this work, and we have to recognize them as well. And the other thing we have to recognize is that many of these folks head households. They have children. They're trying to make it happen. And so I will, first of all, quickly turn this over to Paula and Gladys. I want y'all to tell us what your day as a worker is like, and how that extra money, extra $70 a week will change your life. Let's start with Paula.
Well, it will change my life as far as having money to do more activities with my kids. You know, after a long 40-hour week, your kids are asking, Mom, can we go and hang out? You know, can we go to the movies? Can we go to ESPN Zone? Can we go out to eat? And you're saying, you know, I want to take you, but unfortunately I have to say this portion was left over from this paycheck to add to the next paycheck if I receive my wages, so that I'm able to pay rent, so that we'll be able to have a roof over our head.
Gladys?
Well, I think it will add a lot to my life and to the life of my family. First, it's a very difficult thing to do.
Can y'all hear her?
It's very difficult to have the paycheck, to have transportation to go to your work. Sometimes when you look at everything that you work for a week, you are unable to put gas to work. And some of this work that you do, you have to move from one end to the other, maybe 4 hours, because home care is so difficult to even have 40 hours a week to do. And so you are thinking, if I do not work, the Bible says, he who does not work should not be given food. So you are trying to work. At the end of the week, you have nothing to do. And someone like me, I do not just work because I want to make a living. I work because I love the living. And after you work and work and work, you have nothing left. You have nothing to give to your own house. For example, if this money is given to me, I'll be able to have time for my family. I'll be able to take my daughter, I have a daughter, to, let's say again, I have never taken her for 8 years. I've been working, it's so difficult. Just thinking how America is. One, if you do not pay your rent, you are thrown out, which is the first country I've seen like that. So, this $15 will add a lot. It will help me to have to upgrade my standard of living, which I'm still struggling today to live. And I think it will be a very good thing for home health aid to be given $15. And I have another thing that I have in mind. For 8 years, I have been working as a home health care. I have no vacation at all. home health workers have no vacation, they have no sick leave, they have no extra pay for the hours they do. So I'm also asking, not just for $15 I'm not just asking for $15, I'm also asking that they can give a home health care vacation, even for a week or a day. That would, sometimes what I observed when I began working home health care, you work for a company and they ask you to work for 5 weeks before you are paid the first 2 checks. Some of these companies which were closed, they owe me 7 weeks of pay because I was never paid. And each time they will tell you, the government haven't given us money. So I'm sure that if home care are paid better, they will do a better job. For one, I want people's lives to be uplifted. There are many elderly people in DC who are abandoned. The only friend they have is a caregiver. And if you have such a friend, and you just think that I have $15, you will do a better job and stay longer with them. And their life will also be better. They will get healed. They will not just be abandoned and say, oh, who's going to come? Who's going to come? I personally want people to feel free. My mother died in a hospital bed because there was nobody to take care of. So I really want that $15 to be a nice thing for home caregiver.
Gladys has really given us something to chew on. I want to pull Michael into this conversation, the father of a son, a home care worker for more than 9 years, someone who also struggles with this issue of the pay gap. Michael, what is your day like? And what difference would $70 a week mean to you?
Actually, it would do volumes of things. First thing, the rent. The second thing, there's groceries. The third, transportation. The cost of living in the District of Columbia, as far as with transportation alone, for me, from 7 in the morning, going to rush hour, coming back in the evening, I pay every bit of $8.50 a day. That extra $7 will go on my smart trip. The other thing is getting this $15 will open up doors, which would, the first thing is the integrity of this field. When I went to school, and I remember my instructor talking to me. I remember when I was going to school and my instructor was talking to me, and she used to always stress the totem pole of health providers, the doctor, the RN, the LPN, the CNA, the tech, the home health. But when I got in this field, there was a big gap. And the gap came because of the way we was paid and the way the client and the agencies looked upon us. I come in and I remember many a time, I know my home health aide co-workers and fellow workers out here had to tell the client, excuse me, I'm your aide, not your neighbor. Yes, yes, yes. And the integrity of that has been lost. See, it bothers me, as the doctor spoke, that when I walk down the street and the parking attendant makes more than I do. The integrity of being on the totem pole of the health field as a health provider and treated as if I don't exist, or if my field is not a profession, bothers me. $15 is a door open for things to come.
Caitlin, I want you to sort of thread the needle. You've heard from these folks how they're being challenged, what's going on with their work. You've been doing the law work. You've been pushing the issue. I think from last we heard two things that are extremely important. Number one is the issue of sick leave. You do not want sick people breathing on you, because then you get sick too. Forgive me, y'all, but you know what I'm saying. You need to stay home if you're sick. So we want to talk about sick leave. Quite frankly, we want to talk about pensions. We want to talk about what people are going to do if they're home care workers when they retire, because that's an important issue. So we want to talk about their social security. We want to talk about what's going on there. And I think the third thing I'd like you to address is the issue of wage theft. Because we're assuming that people are working 40 hours a week and being paid for 40 hours a week. But all too often there's a half an hour here and a half an hour there. And could you just, as Michael said, I'm your aide, not your maid. Could you just do this? Could you wash this dish? And when you look at it, you end up working 9 or 10 hours, not 8. So if you would deal with sick leave, pensions, and wage theft in your brief remarks, I would be very grateful.
Well, thank you. It's quite an honor to be here, to be amongst you. I want to just address something. When you introduced me, you said, we're incredibly indebted to you, and I just want to say no, I am indebted to you. And let me tell you why. I recently asked my parents what their long-term care plan was, and my mom said, well, Dad and I are just going to stay at home together, and we're going to take care of each other. Well, that's not a long-term care plan, and I can tell her. But if that is what you want to happen, there is only one way that that is going to be possible, and that way is going to be thanks to a home care worker. The only way we will have enough home care workers to make aging in place a possibility for the 90% of people who hope to remain at home is if we invest in workers. And that means providing family-sustaining wages, benefits, sick time, paid time off, support, training, opportunities for advancement within the field. We absolutely, as a society, need to address this and truly value home care workers, the role that you play, and quantify that value. Because you are the backbone of long-term care, and at some point, our society is going to realize that not without organizing and voices coming together. To address one of the other issues that you brought up of wage theft, I think that one of the major contributions to that is that home care workers are not protected under the Federal Labor Standards Act. And that is not only that home care workers don't have minimum wage and overtime protection, that includes travel time protection. And that also includes having a federal recourse, when wages are not being paid. So that is something that we are very grateful that the Secretary and the Department of Labor and other champions are working on passing, but it's absolutely essential that happens. The companionship exemption, as it is called, is unjust, it is unfair, it is rooted in discrimination, and it absolutely needs to end now.
Kevin, thank you. If we go back in history and look at the treatment of home care workers, they were initially excluded from the minimum wage. And so farm workers and home care workers were not included. Folks could be paid anything. And lots of people were given old clothes, extra food, whatever. Now, obviously, we've come a long way, but all too often that attitude remains. That people, again, I love your description, Michael, aid not made. A lot of people believe that they can treat folks any kind of way. A point that Michael made, and I'd like everyone to reflect on, he said he spends $8.50 a trip, round trip, to, I guess, get on Metro and to go, and that's like $42 a week. So if you're only making now $570 a week, 530. Okay, my math is giving out on me today. $530 a week, and you take that 42 out of it, you're below $500 a week. You're below, if you will, essentially a living wage. I want everyone else to talk about some of the expenses that you encounter as you do your work and what that means, whether it's transportation, whether it's in some cases you're required to wear a uniform or other things. How does that affect the work you do? Let's start with Gladys.
I think it limits you from doing your best most of the time. Like you get to your client house and you live 5 blocks from a grocery store, and you are asked not to go 5 blocks. And he wants you to buy this and that. You have to spend your own money to go for transportation for the client. So it's really, really something that it needs to be addressed. There are times where you have to have extra money, just like me, I drive. And my client, I'm not allowed to take a client in the car. So if I had to go to the hospital with a client who has no metro access, I had to pay my own transportation to go with the client. If I had to go to the grocery store, which is 5 blocks away or 10 blocks away, and the client has no extra money to give me, I had to pay. And so it's a whole lot of things. Then plus your uniform, you're required to buy uniform, you are required to be at work on time. If you are not at work on time, you do not pay. You are not paid for the time that you spend, which you were not at work.
Now, the transportation, you say you have to drive your own car to go get groceries or to take someone to the hospital. Are you reimbursed for mileage or for gas?
No, for home age, you are not.
So would you estimate how much per week you spend doing these kind of errands? How many dollars per week, which comes out of the $570 a week that you're earning?
Let's say $50 sometime.
Wow. So that's a significant amount. So from 570 to 520,
You
because
have to provide gloves. I forget. Some companies do not give you gloves. You buy extra things to protect yourself from any infection.
Okay, so let's even add another $10 to that. So now we're talking, I'm just guessing. So we're talking about 510. So we're talking about your wage being eaten away, eaten away, eaten away. And we're talking about that happening because the terms and conditions of work are not fair. I want to ask Paula to address the same issue. What are you spending in order to do your work? And what does that mean in terms of the erosion of your paycheck?
Well, a lot of erosion comes from not only from the transportation, but also updating and making sure all your certifications are up to date. You know, we have to pay our pocket. They deduct it from our paycheck. I mean, that's an automatic deduction of $50. Sometimes it's $70 or $80 just to have your qualifications as far as your CPR card, AD, things like that, your certifications updated. And I think that should come along with the job because we are representing a company that has taken on they saying that we provide health care, but if we provide health care, why not also make sure that your workers receive the proper training, why is it not paid for? We have for clothing, having on proper shoes, sometimes shoes wear, and most of us now have started wearing the clogs or the imitation Crocs, which are not very supportive for us, and some of us don't make enough money to buy good supportive shoes that are stern enough to hold us all day long. And all of us are not small built, especially when our color we have, we're very curvy or we're very thick. And so we need good shoes, you know what I'm saying? We can't wear flat shoes. So, even that is a cost, having good shoes on your feet so that you're able to bear the burden of taking on responsibilities of caring for another person. We do a lot of bending for them. We do a lot of lifting for them. Carrying groceries for them, moving canned goods and bedside tables, commodes, even trays. All these things. So you want to have on good equipment so that you're able to perform your job at a good level, a good outstanding level to the best of your ability.
So the thing, I'm hearing some of the same things that Gladys said, but the thing that strikes out for me the most of what you said is the issue of professional development. Mm-hmm. The question of whether or not folks who are asking you to do an excellent job of providing dollars for professional development. Because if something were to happen, you would be deemed responsible. Mm-hmm. And the question then is, has someone prevented you from being responsible by giving you the best training? So let's, in a minute, talk about that. Michael, I want you to follow up. You raised this question and motivated the question when you talked about the $42 a week you spend on transportation. Talk about some of the other expenses that you encounter as you do your job.
Well, I haven't made $40 a week in 18 months. Let's get that clear. Since the agencies closed and reopened, my name is out there. I make 20 hours a week. Okay. After they take the taxes, we being single, and it's not a day I talk Paul off and on. I said, I wish Sears could get me some children from Sears. It's hard for me. In the last 2 years, I have moved 8 times. I'm just about at the point where they talk about pillar to post. 17 years ago, I was sheet numbers. I came in this field because I cared. I started in a nursing home. My work deceives me. I'm damn good. I came in home health care, and today I was thinking out of the frying pan into the fire. I don't accept that. I love this field. It's nothing like taking care of a person and watching them smile, or they start opening up and telling their history to you. $20.
Go ahead, Michael.
20 hours a week motivates me to get up every day and go to my client, have not missed a day. know that I wanted to take this day off. They told me, well, you can get 2 weeks in advance.
You know, Michael, working 20 hours a week, is earning roughly $15,000 a year. He has a son, and so he is working below the poverty line for a person and one child. That's something that's important to recognize. He easily could, and I don't know if you do or not, but you qualify for public assistance. You qualify for food stamps and for other assistance. A lot of people won't go get it, and of course, our esteemed Congresswoman is here, and I know that she will address this. We have a crazy Congress. With all due respect, Congresswoman, you're not a part of the crazy people. So some of those folks have been drinking Kool-Aid, and they have been drinking it full time. So they want to cut back on food stamps. They want to cut back on other things.
Let me
Meanwhile, you
address
have
that.
someone.
Let me address that, because my wage, or my wage savings on my pay stub, I don't get that benefit in the district of Columbia. Do you know that? Because it says 1380. Because on my pay stub, it says 1380. They don't look at my hours I break. They said 1380. So I don't get that. Y'all need to know that. I don't get that because I said, hold up. I'll show you my pay stub, my rent. It's $1,400 or some odd dollars a month. Here's my pay stub. I'm only bringing $300-some a week, and all you're going to give me is $45 in food stamps? Yeah. So the argument is that I'm trapped in a hard place, struggling to be recognized on the totem pole as a health care person, as a profession, where they're in New York, they fill in an application and getting playing for McDonald's, shaking fries, easily making $15 an hour. Let's talk about that.
And Michael, you know, I apologize because when I said $15,000 a year, I was doing the $600 or the $15 an hour. I wasn't doing the $13.80. So you're getting a little bit less than that. I told y'all my map was on vacation today. Lex. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I, Paula, forgive me.
I just want to raise the question to every individual that's sitting in this room. I just want you to just take a second and just think now. All of you, I'm hoping, are planning on growing old, right?
It's not a plan.
And you know that somewhere along that line, you're going to need some help. And when you have people come into your house, what are you expecting? What are you expecting? Are you expecting to get this great person with this great personality come into a job that you're paying for or you have worked for, and you expect them to do their job to the best of their ability, right? Then start now preparing. Start making, gestures into as far as why the home care workers need a better pay increase, better wages. Because we do not want people coming in our homes with bad attitudes, and we want them to have the things that they need. A lot of times we offer a lot of companionship to people, and they're happy when you come because, whether you know it or not, some of these families, they abandon their elders, and they look forward to you coming. So when you call and say, well, look, I can't be here today because I don't have the money, it's disappointing to them. It causes them to take on depression, to have mood swings and personality defects, and basically they take on attitudes like they want to give up. We go through a lot of that of trying to coach and encourage our elders to keep fighting and to keep the attitude on, to keep living, because they feel it's like an old shoe they've been tossed aside. People don't come to see them. The grandchildren are off doing other things. And so, being in this position, prepare now and start having things in place. This is a good retirement investment to make sure that your home care worker is gonna come in and be happy and attentive and do the things that you need them to do, because nobody wants to be in a position at an elderly state and be ignored. And we take a lot of that on when their families have deserted them and left them. So when we come in, they're happy to see us. You know, they have somebody to talk to, it's entertaining, and then they hear the latest news, you know. So I think this is a good profession to keep, but we just need the right people in the right positions to make sure that our elders and us growing older folks are getting good health care workers.
Thank you, Paula. I know that there are a couple of other comments that I'd like to get. I'm going to ask y'all to stay here as I bring forward my friend and my Congresswoman, who of course has to go because she's taking care of our business. And you know the devil is busy. I'm not going to say what his name is, but it's Vader. Forgive me, Eleanor, but you know I just say what it is. And we know that we need to be outside messing with these people, and we need to support this woman who has been fighting for us. So, again, I told y'all you could read her bio, but you don't need to read her bio. She is ours. She has been fighting for us. Eleanor Holmes Norton.
Thank you, Julianne. Julianne is not only my economist, she's my good friend. And I want to say how not unexpected it is to find Julianne here. You know, Julianne is an economist, a PhD economist cut from a very different cloth. There are others like that out there, but you don't see much of them. So I really appreciate that Julianne has come here this evening, and that she is lending her brilliant mind to your work. Reverend Gralyan Hagler, whenever I'm in your church, I know I'm in a church where justice is being done and being discussed. This church has been dedicated to justice, has been a sanctuary for justice movements, particularly workers' movements of every kind. I can't tell you how many times I have been in this church just because so much justice business is done in this sanctuary in the Congregational Church. So I want to thank Reverend Hagler for doing it one more time for Metro Executive Vice President Lisa Brown of 1199 SEIU. I want to say a lot about unions and union organizing, how much I appreciate the leadership you are providing for our District of Columbia Homecare Workers. You know, whenever I have a meeting, I always, I'm having, for example, a meeting on reproductive choice that they're about to take from women all over the country, beginning in the District of Columbia. So we're going to have a panel, but I said, I want some real people. They're talking. These are the real people. So you've been hearing not the theories, not the slogans, but what it is like to be a home care worker in Maryland and in Virginia. So I am very pleased to be here with apologies because, they give me a schedule to go to a number of different events tonight. I certainly would not have missed this one. I want to say something about how important you are to me. First of all, it is a sign of the importance of your movement, which I regard as a frontier movement. You are on the frontier of where workers in this country needs to be. And it is a sign of your importance that the Secretary of Labor himself, Tom Perez, is your keynote speaker. I'm going to go everywhere. panel this evening is also important and essential to his work. I want to tell you why you're so important to me, and I'll tell you some of the work I've been doing with low-income workers around the district. But you would think, with all the talk about income inequality, that workers would be out here united, and that you couldn't get into this church because you'd have to go to many churches with workers out here. And you said, well, where are the workers? So when I see workers doing what workers have got to do in a country, my friends, which gives nobody nothing unless they organize to get it. So don't think you're being treated differently. The middle class ain't getting nothing either. The 1% is getting something. The Republican budget just came out today. On their new budget, millionaires will get a $50,000 tax cut, which is the amount of wages of the average worker in the United States all year. That's the kind of Congress you're dealing with. Don't look to the Congress. The people who organized the labor movement in the United States didn't look to the Congress. They organized so that by the time they got through, the Congress had to pass the National Labor Relations Act. They organized first. They did what you were doing and what the workers were doing. So I'm here tonight to tell you, you are leading low-income workers around the nation who are on the front lines, are workers who are at the greatest risk. And I'm going to say something about that risk before I sit down. Because I want to thank you for your determination to insist that if the table is there, it can't have one person on one side and nobody on the other side. And that is what it's like for workers in the United States of America today. You own a business, you on your side, and if there's nobody on the other side, you can do what the hell you want to do. Excuse me, Reverend Gralyan. You can pay them what you want to pay them. You can give them the benefits you want to give them, because they're just sitting there taking it. They're taking it. If you want business, if you want your employers to make all the decisions, they're happy to do it. Now, speaking here to home care workers, I can only think that not only do you count a lot more than most workers in the United States today. We need 1 million more like you in the next 10 years. 1 million more. And from what I've heard from the real people tonight, they may have a hard time getting them if they're not given any more than what home care workers are getting today. Yeah, someone said everybody gets old if they're lucky. I tell you who has gotten old, baby boomers. You know, they were the big bulge in the labor market. Well, that bulge are no longer babies. And not all of them are going to be fortunate enough to be able to take care of themselves into old age. I have been working very closely with the fast food workers, because many of them work in federal facilities. Can you imagine that? You work in a gorgeous monumental building like the Smithsonian, you're being paid the kind of wages that these home care workers make. Now, they are more fortunate than our home care workers because the president has been able by executive order to, for example, raise their minimum wage. I'm going to say something about the minimum wage, but, last year everybody was talking about 10-10, that was a nice slogan. Workers aren't even thinking about $10 an hour anymore. Workers have gone way beyond that, and the Congress is going to have to catch up. 10-10 isn't anymore. carrying the banner are those at the greatest risk. Those that the boss can just toss out and say, you know, they're more where those came from. It's not those in the middle class. They're not office workers, and they better learn how to organize themselves. They better learn that unions not just for factory workers, unless they want to be treated the way they're treated for the rest of their working lives. So nobody's getting a raise, my friends. Not low-income workers, not middle-income workers. Income inequality has many faces. You see the faces in this sanctuary. But none of those faces are more authentic than the faces of home care workers. Because you are the people who serve intergenerationally, whoever needs you. And every American knows that they either need you or they may need you. What really makes me hopeful is seeing you in this sanctuary organizing for your own workers' rights. It is interesting to know that economists like Julianne are now beginning to say what they would not say, even last year. The chair of the Fed, Janet Yellen, who would have said this last year, she was the first woman to chair the Fed, has said that the decline in labor unions is the primary reason why wage growth hasn't picked up. She put her finger right on it. She's at the top of the ladder. She said if workers had unions, wages would grow. It's as simple as that. Not only Janet Yellen, but we're finding other sources that didn't dare raise their voices for organizing, coming forward and saying it now. For example, I opposed, and most Democrats opposed, Larry Summers, which is the reason he is not the Fed chair now, and Janet Yellen is. We strongly opposed him because we never saw in him what we see in Dr. Julianne Malveaux, an understanding for the comprehensive nature of the economy, and the workers are sensitive to that. But he is now, and I'm going to quote him, saying that we should be adequately empowering workers by giving collective bargaining a serious chance. This is somebody who opposed us last year. Larry Summers, the former president of Harvard and now professor there. Robert Rubin, the former secretary of the Treasury. Now, Wall Street, a pillar of Wall Street. I want to quote him. He said recently, measures that facilitate collective bargaining can result in broader participation in the benefits of productivity and growth. These are new voices, my friends. It's not that they didn't believe it all along, it's that now they are putting it at the top of their remarks. They know that workers empower themselves, or workers get nowhere. So, my hat is off to 1199. I'm a third-generation Washingtonian, but I particularly know 1199 from New York, where I lived for more than 10 years. And I know this. If we're talking about organization, you notice I'm not talking this evening just about raising wages and getting benefits. I'm talking about how you do it. You do it by organizing, my friends. I mean, what do you expect a man to do? They say, I got some money here, and I know you need some money. Do you really expect him to do that? And if you don't, you have to ask yourself, how workers, how your fathers and your grandfathers, who were at the center of the rise of the labor movement, got him to say, okay, I will sit with you. And I will acknowledge that what I now have came in no small part from what you have done for me and for my company. The workers are the heart of what happens in companies. No workers, no profits. So I know it's much harder to organize in the settings in which home care workers are. You're not like a factory. You're not like the UAW. It was very hard for them to organize in great big factories. Much harder, which is why office workers aren't organized. They think they so much. We know just how much they are, because we know how much they are worth. It's much harder than what our fathers and grandfathers had to do in the 1930s, because the workplaces are smaller and they are subdivided. But as what makes me know what's going to happen again is coming into the sanctuary tonight. I have been out on the streets in the cold with the low-income workers in front of Union Station and the Smithsonian. But I yearned for a meeting like this. I'm yearning after I see you for the middle-income workers to get out here and follow your leadership. Because that's what you are. You are the living vanguard of a new movement to organize workers to get their rights and their benefits. That's who you are. You have created a new rallying cry. I said at the beginning, nobody talks about $10 an hour anymore. They're already talking about a living wage because you're demanding that.
Yes, we are.
$15 an hour, is that too much to pay somebody who does what you do? I couldn't do what you do. Therefore, I'm going to pay you to do what you do. Until you can have the jobs you have and not even think about food stamps or public assistance or hot heat to keep warm or get cool, until there's no more wage theft, so that you look at your pay slip and say, what about the hours I worked that I don't see on here? And he says, so what? What you gonna do about it? Because that's where we are now. Until we get to the point where you say, well, I know what I'm going to do about it. Because I'm going to file a grievance against you and get my money. Workers are like everybody else. They're like black people where I just came from Selma. Well, we didn't get the Voting Rights Act out of the goodness of the heart of the Congress of the United States. People got out there in the streets, organized themselves, and got themselves a Voting Rights Act, and we're going to get it back because they took that from us. We got to get that back. So don't feel bad. You're not pitiful. You're like everybody else in this country who didn't have what they were entitled to. And I cannot name you a single group that got what it was entitled to by simply saying, would you please give me what I am entitled to? If you name one, show me that group so I can go meet them. And so they can tell me how to do it. And I can pass it on to you. and to all of my constituents. So what you are doing will be successful. What you are doing tonight is the essence of what you do in a democratic society. You are using your democratic rights to organize and demand your right to be treated as decent human beings who make decent wages and benefits. That's not too much to ask. That's what you're going to get if you keep organizing. Thank you, my friends.
Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Okay, if you didn't have your marching orders before, guess what? You have them now. Now, before we stand in privilege to hear our labor secretary, and I need y'all to understand, he doesn't go everywhere. He has an opportunity to go a lot of places, but he didn't go everywhere. So we're happy that he came here, but before we bring him up, I just want to acknowledge some of our elected officials who are in the House. I understand Alyssa Silverman is here. Alyssa, are you still here? There you are. Thank you for being here. Are there others? You know, we don't want to leave anybody out because Alyssa, you and your colleagues can make a great difference in this struggle. Are there any of our ANC leaders who are here? Okay, y'all. I don't know where you live, but guess what? You have an opportunity to run for the ANC. You can be elected to the ANC with 50 votes. I'm not trying to diss the ANC, but you can be elected to the ANC with 50 votes. So some of y'all need to think about that. Now, I am honored. I'm a labor economist. So Secretary Perez, this is a singular honor for me to bring you to our podium and to thank you for recognizing the work that these folks have done. And of course, this is our secretary who has been in office since 2013. He has taken on a number of issues, fair pay. He's dealt with, right to work, a number of issues. And the Labor Department has been one of the departments that has done the kind of work that is not often recognized. The leader of the Fed, the chairman of the Fed, gets 14 years. 14 years to step up or mess up. Step up or mess up. The Labor Secretary serves at the pleasure of the President, which is a good thing, depending on who the President is. So, Secretary Perez, again, we are very grateful to you for spending some time with us. Please come forward, and again, we thank you. I thank you on behalf of these workers, and I just thank you because you're here.
Hey, good evening. It is an honor to be here. And you said that I serve at the pleasure of the President. And I'll tell you, it is indeed a pleasure to serve for this President, Barack Obama. I must confess, as I was sitting here listening to your wonderful Congresswoman, I was reflecting on Bloody Sunday weekend when I was down in Selma and went to a memorial for Viola Liuzzo. Came down from Detroit with a Teamster to participate in the rally. talks about, he said his parents didn't want him to do this because, it's dangerous. And, you could get in trouble. And he said, well, I'm getting in good trouble, Mama. And, I was thinking about that because I'm looking at a lot of people in this audience who get in a lot of good trouble. That's why I like hanging with you. And the lesson to me of Bloody Sunday and the lesson of the movement, and I've had the privilege of serving as a civil rights lawyer and a labor lawyer, and when they did the March on Washington, that was a march for labor rights, as you know, and a march for civil rights. I am a man, I am a woman, and I need a minimum wage, and I need decency. And the thing that I learned as a student of the movement and someone who's had the privilege of enforcing these laws is that it's all about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Jimmy Lee Jackson did an extraordinary thing. He gave his life for the movement. Viola gave her life for the movement. Pastor Reed gave his life for the movement. And, one of my favorite people in Selma was 103 years young, Amelia Boynton. The president went up to her before he was giving the speech, and, he said, I'm about to, go where you were to deliver a speech. What should I do? And, if you look at the video, she was right next to him, and she said, make it a good one. And you know what? I think he did. And I hope you watched it. Because you know what he was talking about? He was talking about the collective power of we. And he was talking about how, when we work together, when we think long term, when we think inclusively, when we recognize that we all succeed only when we all succeed, when we recognize that America works best when we field a full team and pay them a fair wage, that's the collective power of we. And that's who we are as a nation. And there are so many signs that the collective power of we is so powerful. And the organizing that you do. Barack Obama at his core is still a community organizer. He understands that change comes from the bottom up. He understands that if we're going to raise the minimum wage, it's going to come from the bottom up. And 7 million people this January across this country got a raise in the minimum wage as a result of grassroots advocacy at a local level and at a state level by you all, by so many other people who understood that, you know what, nobody who works a full-time job should have to live in poverty. That was the value proposition. That's what folks said. That's what people in red states and blue states, Nebraska, Arkansas, Alaska, South Dakota, you don't need to live in a blue state to understand that basic notion that there's no dignity to a 40-hour week when you have to get your food at the food pantry. And too many people are doing that. I read a story over the weekend that I haven't been able to get out of my mind. It was a story in the New York Times. The bonus pool on Wall Street last year, the bonus pool on Wall Street was roughly twice as much as the combined wages of all full-time minimum wage workers in the United States. Let me repeat that. The bonus pool on Wall Street last year was roughly twice as much as the combined income of all full-time minimum wage workers in the United States. That is not we. That is me. And we need to build a we society. A society in which everybody succeeds, and that is why your organizing is so critically important. I've spent a lot of time working on the home health regulation. And you know what it's all about? It's about people like you. It's about making sure that people who are doing God's work get paid a decent wage. It's about changing a law that was frankly insulting to all of you. You are not babysitters. You are committed professionals doing some of the most important work in our society. If we pay people by the worthiness of their work, we all be millionaires. Because you are doing such important work. But we are going to continue to fight. Because you have done such a good job of organizing. We need to continue those efforts. We need to continue to make good trouble. Because you know what? That good trouble was what brought John Lewis to the Voting Rights Act. That good trouble was what brought us the Fair Housing Act 2 years later. That good trouble is what brought us the Americans with Disabilities Act 25 years ago. That good trouble is what led every single president except 2 since FDR to sign an increase in the minimum wage. That good trouble is what brings us shared prosperity. And that good trouble continues to be necessary here in Washington. And I hope we'll get your help. Because you know what? I am chronically optimistic about our future. I really am. Because you know why? You go to Selma and you see ordinary people doing extraordinary things. You go, and I talk to folks at 1199. I was up in New York at your training facility, and I see ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And your work has never been more important. Because you know what? You are caring for some of our most vulnerable people. And, you know, my parents taught me that if you want to get to heaven, you better have letters of reference from poor people. And you know what? You all are going to heaven. Because you are working with poor and underserved and marginalized communities every single day. And you do it with professionalism. You do it with pride. And you know what? You care for other folks. Because you know what? Here you are at almost 8 o'clock at night when you could be at home. But you are recognizing that the most important lesson of Selma is indeed to organize and to keep the fight. And to make sure we continue to cause good trouble, because that is what is going to change the minds and hearts. That's what's going to bring us a hike in the minimum wage. That's what's going to bring us fairness in home health. That is what is going to bring us shared prosperity across this country. We continue to need your help. We continue to need your leadership. We will affect things from the bottom up. We continue to need immigration reform, and we need your help there. We continue to need skills training so that everybody can punch their ticket to the middle class. And as we move forward, I am absolutely confident that we will get there. Because you know what? And I leave you with this. The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. But there's a corollary of that. It does not bend on its own. I worked for a guy named Ted Kennedy. He understood that. It did not bend on its own. We are seeing the biggest drops in the ranks of the healthcare uninsured as a result of leadership and vigilance from people like Ted Kennedy and Barack Obama. Even after his death, his legacy endured, Senator Kennedy. Even as the Republican Congress votes to repeal Obamacare, we've had the biggest drop in 40 years in the uninsured rate. I met a guy named Ward in Nashville recently. Ward literally got covered March 1st of last year, and 12 days later, he had a liver transplant. It saved his life. And then Victor in Salt Lake City, as a result of the Affordable Care Act, Victor was able to finally deal with his kidney cancer. And you know what both of them want to do? They both want to go back to work. What's the biggest thing you're looking forward to? And they both told me, I want to be a taxpayer again. Why are we making it so hard for people to be taxpayers? That makes no sense. You know, my parents didn't teach me, and I know your parents didn't teach you that, you know, if you blow out your neighbor's candle, you know, it does not make your candle shine brighter. We do not benefit if Ward does not have health insurance. We do not benefit if Ward doesn't have someone who can take care of him, who makes a decent wage. You know, some of us in this room are getting older. Most of us aren't. But you know, as we age, we need more home health workers. And I met who left her job as a home health worker, and you know where she went to work? McDonald's. Because she felt that that was a better career ladder. And that's wrong. And that is why we need to pay you a decent wage. And if you work 50 hours a week, you're entitled to overtime like everybody else. And that's what we're fighting for. And we're going to keep fighting for that. And you're going to keep fighting for decency. And we're going to keep fighting to make sure that the American dream is here for everyone. And you need to keep organizing. You need to keep working together. Because change indeed can happen when ordinary people like y'all do extraordinary things. When extraordinary leaders like Mary Kay lead us down the road. Because you know what? The collective power of collective bargaining is what brought us the middle class in this country. And it will continue to bring us the middle class. Let's keep on keeping on. Let's keep on causing good trouble. Let's keep on pursuing the American dream. Thank you very much.